Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to this session today where I'm going to be walking you through creating your own AI agent that's going to make your life easier. It's going to help you get better quality clients, and ultimately it's going to give you a bit of an idea as to how to create your own agents and make better use of AI. Go over. So what do we mean when we say AI agent? In fact, over to you guys. Just type in the chat box. What is your definition of an AI agent over and above? You know, we've got ChatGPT, we've got these platforms that we can use, etc. So what would you say the definition of an AI agent is? So I'll just give it a few more seconds, because obviously if you don't know, then I'm not going to get any responses in there whatsoever. So I'm not going to wait too long for a reply, but hopefully you are typing something in. But I will be answering it. So pre-programmed, prompted, AI bot carries out a series of instructions independent of user input. Yeah, absolutely. In other words, it's fully automated. You create it, create once, and it will just go. It can go 24/7, and it's fully automated. It is acting. I mean, you could argue that you're effectively creating little employees that are very function specific. Okay, and actually calling it an employee is a really good thing, because you effectively employ people, but you have different functions within your organization that they will then fill as a role. And with AI agents, you might take a minute section of one of those functions and automate it and just leave it going 24/7. So for me, that is what one is, programmed to automatically create linked potential clients. Yeah, look, there's software that does things automatically for me. Yeah, absolutely. So I think all of the above are correct. Robo staff. Yeah, well, apart from the fact that I personally don't like the word staff, it's a good description. Yes, it is about just creating those mini bots that are very, very job specific. So let's just take this for a moment. If, I've just said, using the analogy that we were going to employ, if you were, let's just have a think about what kind of saving this will create for you if you were to put this in place in your business. If you were to employ a marketing agency or an employee, okay, that would, let's say it could be 3, 5, 10 times a week, create LinkedIn content for you that is specific to your exact requirements, that's targeting your ideal client, that is using inspiration from you, your experience, your success stories, your kind of ideas for strategy, etc. If you were to use either an employee or a marketing agency, what kind of monthly fees do you expect to be paying someone to be doing that? Especially if we're talking maybe 5 posts a week or something like that. Just give us an idea in the chat box. Maybe some of you are using an external agency. Perhaps they're doing a little bit more than just LinkedIn posts, but just as an idea, just put some details in there. That's what I was thinking, Jonathan, to be fair, yeah. Okay, so far only Jonathan. Okay, £150 a week. Okay, so yeah, that pretty much equates to 600 a month. Yeah, we're talking a few £100s a month, aren't we, really? And, depending on the quality of the person, it can go up. Obviously, if you employ somebody full-time, they're going to be doing other stuff as well, but it can be quite time-consuming just to be creating content every single day, yet alone week, as I'm sure you know yourself. So, all right, well, thank you. I've only had a couple of responses, by the way. There are loads of you on here, so please don't be shy. And, there's no such thing as a wrong answer in there, but keep those coming in. All right, so ultimately, we are looking at £500–600 a month so far is what's come up in there. So, just a couple of the numbers that have come up in there so far: £500 a month, £600 a month. you're talking a lot of money a year, aren't you? 5,000 to 6,000, 7,000, whatever it is, a month. Sorry, a year. That's a lot of money that you could potentially save here. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because the platform that we use for creating AI agents, that's going to cost you a little bit of money a month anyway. Now you can create multiple agents on that platform. The one I use that I'll be showing you, I think, is about £60 a month. So compared to some of these figures, £60 a month isn't bad, is it? Yeah, and you could have multiple AI agents running on that one platform. So I just wanted to give a bit of context there. So today we are creating this LinkedIn agent. Now, for me, there are a few considerations, and again, I'd like you to input into the chat box and join me with some of this to make sure that we are covering off the right things. When we're creating anything, I mean, some of you may know that I come from a computer programming background, creating software in general. So creating AI agents, I find to be incredibly easy, but actually, it is so easy compared to computer programming of 20, 30 years ago. You know, it is so easy, which you'll see. Now, I find it really, really important that we map out a few things before we start to create these things. One is, let's explore some considerations. Okay, considerations. So I'll get the ball rolling just so you know exactly what I mean, and then by all means start to enter stuff. So first of all, if it's posting on LinkedIn for us, we don't want, and this is in no particular order, this is just what's coming into my mind, but we don't want any repetition. We don't want it to be doing the same thing that it did yesterday, the day before, last week, or even last month. We don't want it just to be, you know, the same topic all of the time, do we? We want it to vary. We don't want it to hallucinate. We don't want it to make stuff up. And as many of you know, I think I've spelled hallucinate wrong. Well, I know I have because it's not got a T there for a start. Hallucinate. Oh, flipping out. I'll stick with the small words from now on. We want it to, and again, by the way, just start to think about some stuff yourself, because I really want you to embrace the idea of creating your own things here as well. All right, this is about showing you what's possible. What else? Well, we want to replicate, if I'm doing it, my experience. If you're doing it, your experience, your tone of voice and things like that. So ultimately replicate, and I'm just going to put me. Yeah, I suppose tone, experience, knowledge, those types of things. What else might we want? Well, we want it to speak, target the post to our ideal clients, the type of people that we really want to attract. They're not necessarily bothered about all and sundry. I know some people want anybody, but actually, if we can attract the people that we really enjoy working with, that are going to be paying us more of a premium because we gel, then that's better still, isn't it? So we want to speak. Oops. To ideal, I'm just going to put IDC, ideal client profile, ICP. And then what else do we want? We don't want to let loose. I mean, we're all pretty much in our own rights and in our own ways control freaks. But the last thing we want to do is hand over control to AI to say, you post on my behalf on LinkedIn and I won't even see it. Do you agree with that? So we would want to check before posting. Okay, is this making sense so far? Give us a yes or no in the chat box, given that with the amount of people that are on here, the chat box is very quiet. So, okay, thank you for that, Phil. Much appreciated. Yeah, okay, lots of yeses coming in. So they're the considerations that I've thought of so far. If you've got anything else to add, please do. Keep going. Yeah, all right, I'm sorry. Okay. So the next thing that I like to do is just map out roughly a bit of a flow chart, what I feel this should do, just so that I've got a bit of a visual plan. So let's just create a bit of a flow chart together. So what I'm thinking is, first of all, we want it to, I'm just going to use square boxes for the flow chart things, but we want something to trigger it, yeah, some kind of schedule. Yeah, so we want to trigger, so schedule, and maybe, you know, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, or every day and a certain time. So days, times, whatever. Yeah. Then what we want to do is, now obviously I'm putting this on because I understand how AIs work. But remember, an AI bot doesn't necessarily know anything about you. If you were going down this route of employing somebody or using an external person, they obviously would need to know a heck of a lot about you. Yeah. They would want to know about your ideal clients, you know, lots of information about them, their pains, their desires, their frustrations, lots of information about you, your values, your ethos, all of those types of things, what your purposes, what your objectives are, etc. So to be fair, the AI needs that as well. You know, it can't, not yet anyway, it can't kind of synchronize with our brain, so it needs this information. So it will need to get context. And ideally just once, yeah? It will also need to get previous posts so that it can check that it's not replicating something from before. And then we want to pass that information into to an AI to create a new post. Well, then, of course, we want to check that we're happy before it does anything like that. Yeah. So check with me. So that will be the only point of human intervention. But I'm sure you'll agree that the last thing that we want to do, yes, you're right, Simon, yeah, niche content, all of those types of things. The last thing I would want to do is just unleash AI to be posted on my behalf without me even checking it first. And I'm sure you can agree and relate to that. And likewise, quite frankly, even an employee, I wouldn't want them, especially for the first few months even, posting on my behalf. You know, we want to make sure that these things are going to be absolutely in line with my voice, my tonality, my values, all of those things really important because our reputation is being put out there via these posts, isn't it? So really, really important. So check with me. Now, obviously, if I'm not happy with that, if it's a no, I'm not happy, then actually we'd want it just to do it again. If I am happy, then we want it to log that for a start. Oops, I've stopped doing my box. Log the post so that it knows what it's done, as in wherever these previous posts are being logged, we want it to log again. And of course, we want it to actually post it. Now, on a very, very rudimentary basis, does that make sense? Give us a yes or no. I love the idea of it being an employee. Yeah, well, I think that's the way we should see it for sure. Does that make sense? This is a flow chart. Yep. Okay. Brill. All right. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go through this process. Kind of. Okay. Well, if you've got any specific questions, Karim, just ask away. It's not a problem. It's live, and you know that's what I'm doing here. I am conscious that I've already been almost 20 minutes just setting the scene here, so I do want to get cracking with it. But any questions, I will be glancing at the chat box regularly, and I'll do my best to answer it. Now, a few caveats to this. Obviously, I'm giving you a whirlwind style tour of creating an AI agent. Given the time we've got together, there's only so much I can break this down. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to fulfill the, you know, the mission of walking you through this stuff. Okay, so just wanted to say that because there will be a few bits and bobs along the way. I will try and explain as much as possible. Right, so let me share my screen. Yeah, screen. I don't think I'm going to be playing sound or anything, but I'm just going to switch that on anyway, and we'll put on, I'll just share desktop too. So hopefully right now you can see my ChatGPT. I've got a few other windows open in the background because I'm going to flick between them. Yes, hopefully you can see my ChatGPT background. Emma, can you just give us a yes or no to say that you can see that for me, please, given that you're on here? Okay, brilliant. I've had other yeses as well. Perfect. Now, one of the things that I mentioned early doors was, of course, that we need for the AI agent to understand as much about us as possible. All right. So what I've done is I've created a prompt that we could put in. Now, we could just put help me create a marketing context file for an AI agent sending LinkedIn posts on my behalf. We could just do that. Okay. Now, I tend to find, with my experience on and kind of building up on prompt engineering, I find that the more specific and, you know, really detailed the prompt that you can give it, the better the results and outcomes. So I'm going to paste in one that I did earlier because it would take me too long to type. But what I will do, I thought I'd be able to make that bigger. Let me just pull it up on a text box for you. I'll just very, very quickly talk you through this. So it's quite a lengthy prompt for a start. Let me just make that a little bit bigger so you can see it. If you're familiar with XBRL in the accounting world, you'll know that the way that XML works is that you wrap stuff in certain labels like that, and then you end it in a slash. When you're doing a big prompt, all of the platforms currently, they work better if you kind of encapsulate certain things within these labels so it knows what we're on. All right, so I've got context here. I'm an accountant who owns and operates an accounting firm. I've got the mission of the thing, okay, and that's within mission, so it knows when that finishes. All right, now we're on instructions, and I've wrapped it into three steps altogether. So I've asked it to interview me. All right, I'm telling it here that I want to create basically a marketing strategy. Yeah. So I've told it to ask about all of these different types of questions. And then that's step one. Step two is I want it to critique that information, just, you know, from a marketing expert point of view, just challenge me on stuff, just in case I've not really gone deep enough in certain areas. And then after the interview, create basically a detailed context file. All right, so what I can do now, I've already copied it in. I can copy that into here, and then what that will do, this is just normal ChatGPT. By the way, you don't have to use ChatGPT. It could be Claude, it could be Perplexity or Gemini or any of those, Copilot, whatever. Just do the same thing in there. So what this has done now is it's created me this series of questions, and it's continuing to do that right now. Okay, it seems to have stopped. Here we go. So I'm just going to let that run through so we can see what it is. What I recommend that you do here, okay, so it's given me 24 questions in this case, is click the copy button, all right, put that into maybe a text file or a Word document, and then simply go through and answer those questions for you. You can leave the existing stuff in place, it doesn't matter, just put a few returns in there. And then you can just answer your questions as best you can. All right. Now, once you've done that, copy and paste the lot back into here. And then that will, next step is critique it. It might challenge you on a few things. So I don't think you've been very detailed here. Maybe you've been too broad on the ideal client, because obviously the more focused you can be on your ideal client, the more people are going to resonate. When you're trying to talk to everyone, nobody's listening. So, those types of things are really important. Now, in the interest of time, here's one I did earlier. So I've got a context file that this has created. All right, it's put all of this information in based on everything that I have answered. All right, it's got loads of stuff in there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to copy this. So if I click on here, I've got a few options here, by the way. I can download, I can save that as a PDF, as a Word document, or as a markdown document. Now, if you don't need all of the styling and stuff like that, a markdown document is next to nothing in terms of the file size. Now, file size can be really important for the likes of ChatGPT and stuff like that, because the more info you throw at it, the more tokens it will use, and it only gives you a certain limit for the amount of tokens that you can either use in a week or a month, but also in one chat. All right, so you want the smallest file size. So I might do download it as a markdown. If I just save that in my downloads, what I can then do is I'm just going to open that up in a text file. All we can see is it's got exactly the same information in there, but it's just used plain text, and it just uses these kind of hashes for different sections. So it's very simple, but it's a very, very small file. If we put it in Word, it would be massive. So we've got our context file now. All right, there's a lot of information in it. Now, this is mine. I didn't want to pretend to be one of you and trying to think about what your ideal clients were. So I'm doing this under the guise of my own business. All right. But hopefully you'll appreciate that it will apply to you in your way as well. So there's everything about me, my business. I've got a few different products in there as well and stuff like that, but it'll take what it feels is necessary from it. And it's only a very basic one compared to my normal one as well, because I didn't have too long to create this. All right, so I'm just going to minimize that. I'm just going to move that to the side. So what we want to do now is, if I go back to my flow chart for a moment, I can't actually see me at the moment. I can't see how you've got this configured. View, here we go, view, follow host view. If I just do well, the hell, no, I don't know. Okay, I'll stop my screen share for a moment. That's the best option. So right now you can see this again. So I'm going to go now into creating this AI agent very shortly, but what we want to do is make this context file that we just created really easy for the AI agent to access. And we're going to store all the previous posts into a spreadsheet, so that, again, this AI agent can access them every time. Now, the reason I'm putting these external and into these documents is because it may be that as time goes on, you've just created another success story, or you've decided that you want to tweak things. You want to be able to easily access these things, or certainly this one, and tweak it so that the AI agent will just look at this refreshed document every time and use that information. All right. So first of all, before we start creating this, I'm just going to store these two, or set that one up and store that one. All right. So back to my screen share. Right. So I'm just going to minimize that for a moment. Shift my chat box. I'll just move that out of the way. And what I'm going to do, if I load up my Google Chrome, within Google Chrome, I'm going to use Google Docs and Google Sheets for this. You don't have to. You can use any platform. Maybe it's a Dropbox location. Maybe you're using Microsoft and its kind of infrastructure or whatever. So I'm just using this because it's fairly easy from my point of view. So first of all, I'm going to load up Docs, and I'm just going to create a document. I'll give this a name. So it would be better, but my business context file. Very straightforward. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy and paste. I could have just imported it directly, but I'm just going to copy and paste that, all right, into here. Simple as that. It automatically saves. What I'm then going to do is just make it so that it's not locked down to me. And I'm going to make it so that I can share it. Now, it says anyone with a link, but look, if you look at the link here, it's very complex. Nobody's going to stumble across this, all right? I won't copy the link yet. I shall just leave that as it is. Because the next thing I'm going to do, just going to park that there for a moment, is I'm going to set up a Google Sheets document. So if I go into my Sheets, I'm going to create a new sheet. And what I want for the benefit of, again, this flowchart is that I just want it to remember the previous post. So I might have just three columns, dates of post, the post. And what I want to do in my post is have a call to action. And that call to action might be send me a direct message. It might be check out my LinkedIn profile. It might be put a comment in the box or something like that. All right. So what I want it to do, though, is not use the same one over and over and again, but actually rotate through those. So I'm going to store what the call to action was as well. OK, so that's what CTA means, call to action. I'm just going to leave that. I'll give it a name again. So log of LI posts from AI, just to make that really easy to understand. Now, again, I will just make that available for share. All right. So I've got my two documents ready. What I now need to do, let's get rid of this. What I now need to do is start to create the AI. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get rid of that. And the platform that I use for creating AI agents, and there are many different ones, but this one's one of the best I've found so far, in my opinion, anyway. So it's called, well, I'll just type in 𝐿8N.io. Okay. So hopefully you can see that. 𝐿8N.io. Okay, made a note of that. Now, I'm just going to sign in. Again, in the interest of time, I need to go through this fairly quick. So obviously you would need to set up an account and things like that, but you do get, I think, a 7 or 14-day trial as well. Now I'm going to create my workflow from scratch. And when we start, we just get this blank sheet. All right, so that can be a little bit daunting in itself. But I've created my flowchart. And I can only assume, by the way, I don't know if you know, but where I am, my image and your screen share, you can drag the divider across as well, I think, so you can maybe see a little bit more. But if you wanted to see my flowchart behind, it's there. And that's what I'm using as a guide. So first of all, if I click on here, it pretty much knows I need to create a trigger. All right. And the type of trigger I want, as I've said, is a schedule. All right. So I'll click schedule. Now, what I can do on here then is I can say, right, I want this to happen every week. And I might want this to happen on Mondays. And let's say we go for, I mean, it can be up to you, Wednesdays and Fridays. And I want it to go off at 7, let's say 30 in the morning. Okay, simple as that. That is our trigger set up. And for all of these, by the way, we can schedule these to see what happens. We can execute it there and then to see what happens. So in this output, this tells you what it's going to pass to the next item along in our flowchart, which we're going to replicate on the screen. Now, as it happens, that's irrelevant in this case, but we might have wanted to pick up the time or the date or anything like that, the schedule. All right. So we've got our schedule trigger. So at those times and dates, that will automatically fire this off. In the meantime, we can execute it just to test it anyway, so it's not a problem. So what did we say the next thing was that we wanted to create? Well, the next thing that we need to do then is get those documents, isn't it? Because we want to pass that information into our AI tool. All right, so simple. We're just going to click on this plus, and we're going to load up. I'm just going to type in Docs, which should then load up Google Docs very easily. Click on there. I'm going to get document. You see how straightforward this is? It is really easy. Now, a quick thing to mention is I've already set up a link to my Google Docs account here. You would need to do that the first time you use it. All right, create a new account. But it just asks you to, it guides you through enabling this in your Google Docs. All right. And then all I need to do is drop in, it says doc ID or URL. Well, if I flick back to my Chrome, what I've got here, I can just click the whole link. I could, if I wanted to, just grab this document ID, which is all of that stuff there. But it's easier just to grab the link it's given me. Copy link. And then if I go back and drop that in here. Now, if I execute this, we can test that that works. And we can see, yes, the content is everything that was in that document. All right. It's got all of that ready to pass on. Brilliant. So we've got two of our flowchart items in there now. And as you can see, it creates a flowchart as well. So it's very, very handy from that point of view. So the next thing on here then is we want to get the previous posts. So what I want to do now is I'm going to grab my Google Sheet. So if I go into Google Sheets, and I can then get rows from a sheet. Again, like before, I've already created the link to my Google Sheets account. The operation here is get rows, and unfortunately it doesn't allow you just to get the last so many rows. So there's something else I've got to do for that, which I'll come on to in a moment. Now, I can just drop down this list, log of LI posts from AI. That was the last thing I created, so it's convenient at the top of the list. And I'm just going to choose sheet 1. Okay, we don't need any filters. There's nothing else we need. If I execute that step, it will show me. Now, at the moment, it's showing no return data. Now, it's giving me a tick to say it communicated with the document, but we can't really see what it's done with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop into that there. And I'm just going to put some dummy data in. So if I do 2 to 25, this was my post. Doesn't matter about my typos. And let's say that was a DM me. And let's just put another one in as well. 3/3/25. That was my post. Comment. Just for the sake of populating. Now, if I go back to here and execute again, what we can see now is it's returned 2 items, 2 rows, and we can see exactly the data that's in there. So it's picked that information up. Now, a bit that's not on my flow chart here is, what I'm conscious of is that in terms of repetition, we probably don't want it to repeat what it's done in the last maybe 2 or 3 months or so, but there's no harm in a very similar kind of topic being done after that time, because obviously people sometimes need to hear a similar message more than once. So what I want to do, and I mentioned earlier, you can't just get like the last 20 rows or the last 50 rows from this, which I think is a shame. So it pulls all of them in, or 1 row. Is what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a piece of code in. Now, when it gets to coding, that can sound scary, but all I did, despite the fact that I am a coder, it's 10 times quicker, if not more, just to ask ChatGPT and say, right, the output I'm getting from my Google Sheets is it's listing all of the rows in N8N. Can you make it so that it filters that down to just the last 50? That's all I did. It created me some code to do that. And I am just going to copy that in rather than going through the ChatGPT process again. Just going to copy that in. And all we can see here, very, very simple. Well, I say very simple. If you understand code, you don't have to. That's the point. ChatGPT created it for me. It's just getting the last 50 things and returning them. So if I execute that, we'll see that the same data should be there. Okay, which it is, because obviously there's only 2 rows in there. All right, so now we've done that, what we want to do next then is we want to actually create an interface with an artificial intelligence bot. So what we're going to do now, we can click AI. It comes up at the top of the list. If it didn't, just type in AI agent or something like that, and it'll filter that down. So I'm putting an AI agent in now. Few little settings to set up on here. Okay. So first of all, one of the things that we need to configure is that we need to tell it what it's got to do. By default, what it will do is it'll pass the information from the previous, these are called nodes. All right. So if I go to there, you can see it's passing 2 items to that. Now it's passing 1 because I've got it to condense it all into one list. So it will automatically take the information from the last thing, and we can see that on here. But actually, I don't necessarily just want that, because I want to pass it my content from my Google Docs, and I want to pass it my content from my sheets, all right, which actually I want to do via here. So, by the way, am I okay? Is the pace that I'm going through okay? I know it's a whirlwind tour, but just let me know. All right, that's brilliant, Jonathan. Thanks for telling me that. Yeah, that's fantastic. So good. All right, I'm getting some good. Excellent. All right, good stuff. So what I'm going to do here, first of all, with AI agents, there's a couple of things that it needs information from. One is the prompt. This is the user message. All right. Now, at the moment, by default, it's connected to the previous chat node. I'm going to change that to define so I can pass it whatever information I want. And the other one, and it's usually hidden by default, is the system message. Now, the system message is really, really important. The default just says you are a helpful assistant. Well, we want it to be very specific and not just a helpful assistant here. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to, in the spirit of here's one I did earlier, I'm just going to talk you through, if I put this into this mode and get rid of that, I'm going to paste in my prompt that I've created. Remember what I said earlier, that, you know, the prompts that I create look very complex, just because I know from experience that the more specific you are, the more, the better the outcome. Ultimately, you know, you put crap in, you get crap out. So I could just say, create me a LinkedIn post based on the information that I'm giving you, but it's not going to be as accurate because there are certain caveats that we maybe want to put in place. So let me just copy this through. I'm just grabbing this from my, here's the one I created earlier. So I'm just going to paste this in, and then what I can do actually on here is I should be able to, yeah, click that button there. Now what that does is it just gives me a full screen. When we click that button, it shows under expression what you've typed in, but if there's anything that is picking up from these previous nodes, it will show them on here as well, the result. Now, at the moment, they'll show the same, okay? So let me just very, very briefly talk you through. So I've encapsulated the whole thing within, this is your LinkedIn content strategy, and then I've defined the role, okay? So you are a LinkedIn content strategist, seeking premium accounting and added value services is what I've called it. I've got the task, so create one LinkedIn post for me, and then I'm giving it some instructions. So context requirements, and I'm saying this is critical. Make sure you follow this because sometimes it can still have a mind of its own. So I'm saying this is critical. Now I'm giving it instructions based on this post and content document provided in context detail. I've not done that yet, but notice I've given that a specific word. All right. Pass the entire document. Sometimes if I pass the document, it'll only skim reads it. You know, it'll just take what it thinks it needs. If I say pass the entire document, it will read it thoroughly before it does anything. Okay. And then I've got a few bits and bobs here. I'll just tell it what that document contains. Post requirements. I like the style of my post to be in AIDA. AIDA stands for attention, interest, desire, an action. It's just a way to structure the post. You don't have to use that. That's entirely up to you, but I like to do it that way. There are lots of different ways that you can structure your posts. Formatting, I've said the length is between 150 to 250 in words, not characters, for example, things like that. So there's a few bits and bobs here that I've got. I'm not going to go into depth on everything here, but I will just go down to another important part, which is rules. Rules, I think, are really important. Now, I've only got a couple of rules in here. One is saying avoid replication, review the list of recent posts within, and now I've got another kind of word here, previous posts, and avoid the same contact that's been used before. And then the rule number 2, ChatGPT or various other ones, they have they tend to fabricate information. Okay, so if I tell it not to, don't make up false stories, don't make up numbers or claims and things like that. Stay true to the context file that you've been provided with. All right, really important. I'm sure you'll agree. And then finally, we've got the goal, the objective, and I've told it how to send the information out. All right. The reason for that is because I want to store information back in that spreadsheet. So what was the CTA used? What's the LinkedIn post? Various other bits and bobs like that. Now, I did originally make it give me more information like the topic focus, but I didn't bother with storing all of that information. You might want to. But that's all encapsulated in that. Now, there were a couple of extra bits of information we said we'd pass. One is context, detail, etc. So if I just close that, that's all in there. In our user prompt, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass it the information that it can then use from these previous things. So first of all, and I'm just going to copy it in just to make sure I use the right labeling. So I want to use context file. Okay, so I'm using that as kind of a variable, equals, and then I can drag in. Now this will glitch based on my previous attempt, so I can rectify it, but it will glitch. If I copy in content, watch it not glitch. All right, so if it's red, it's not working properly. All right, I did hit this as a snag before, and I realized that I can just overcome it by, rather than it being item, I just put first, and then that realizes what I mean. Don't ask me why. Took lots of Googles and research, figured it out. So I'm just shortcutting that process for you. It should have just worked with the drag and drop. Okay, so that's that one. Now, if you remember, I said if you click on this, you can see what's happening. So we can see here that context detail now equals all of this information. The next thing that I wanted to do then was also populate the previous posts. So previous posts equals, and now I want that to be the content from my data here. Yeah. So I could just do data 1 or data 2, but I want the whole lot. So that's kind of an array of information. Now, I also figured this out through trial and error. If I go to the bottom, it just says object. Yeah, so it didn't read it properly. And what I recognized then that I needed to do, and I'm just going to replace this. Again, it's all Google trial and error, messing about, ChatGPT, and you name it. But I realized that if I just put stringify in front of it, then that would actually work as well. So it's given me the rows. Will you share the system message text with us? Let me address that in a moment. So now we've got all the information that this needs. I can execute that. It's got its previous data here. So if I just, oops, problem, no, it's not. I need to tell it what chatbot to use. All right, so this is just a generic agent. Now you can connect with Claude, Copilot, DeepSeek, Google Gemini. You can see all of these things on here. All right. I'm actually going to use OpenAI, as in ChatGPT. And then I can choose which model I want to use. I don't know why it gives me the option, because I always prefer to use the latest. Now, anytime I want to get back, we can either click back to Canvas or just this area here. Now, that's there. If I double click that again and go back in, if I execute that, it should hopefully present us with a LinkedIn post. I was going to say normally it's quicker than that. So did that work? It says it worked. Input. If we drop down, there should be an output. So that's all the information it was given. What I want is just the output bit. Output. Here we go. So we've got a LinkedIn post, and we can kind of read it. It's got these slash ends because it's just a set of string at the moment. Okay. So we can see that that has worked. We've got a green tick. It's successful. So we're nicely progressing through here now. The next thing we want to do is actually read it ourselves. I want to make sure that before that posts anything out there, that I'm happy with it. However, before we do that, the output from here, as you saw, was a little bit unreadable, wasn't easy to look at. Okay, so it's got all these slashes in there, and it's also got information about my CTAs and stuff like that. So I dropped another little bit of code in there just to tidy that up and separate it out. Again, I'm just going to copy and paste this in, but I'll just tell you what it does. I've got my document on the side of here from obviously my experiment, which I did to make sure everything was going to run smoothly. So if I just go to here, copy that in. All this code does is takes the AI output, okay? And it's just separating it into the different bits of information that I wanted. So if I run that, what we'll see then is it's taking that and it's just separating it out into LinkedIn post, CTA type, the label, and then the topic. Okay, so those things, very, very simple. And again, I didn't even create the code. I just asked ChatGPT to do it. I said, I don't like the way it's looking. Can you make it easier to read? So what we want to do now is I want to check this. So if on here, we can see human in the loop. If I click human in the loop, I can get it to email me either through my Microsoft account, my Gmail account, or any, it'll allow me just to configure it. It can send it to me on WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever. I'm just going to use Slack for now, but you can use any, and it'll just send you an email and say, are you happy with this? So if I select Slack, now I've got to send and wait for a response on here. Obviously, it's just pre-picked that because it's a standard module. So if I use that, send to a user, and I want to send it to me. Okay, we've got lots of people on here, but if I select me, okay, and then I've got a response type. I could just have approval, but instead I'm just going to put free text on here for reasons I shall come into. And then all I want to do is say, are you happy with this? Have a couple of returns. Then I'm just going to drag that in there. All right, so let's put that in there. We get to see a glimpse of what it's doing below. Okay. And then I'll just put, say, yes or no. Okay, simple as that. So if I execute this now, it's waiting for an input. It's giving me a green tick. It's waiting for an input. If I load up my Slack, it's already here. Are you happy with this? Say yes or no. So now I could read through that, and then I'm either going to think, yeah, I like that, or no, I absolutely hate it. So I will respond. Now, the reason I put not just a yes or no in the response type, it's open text, is because we could build on this and say, well, I just want you to change this a little bit, or I just want you to change that. For now, I'm just going to put a yes, okay? But now we need to handle the outcome. So we can see now that the outcome's yes. What I now need to do is decide, okay, so if it was no, we need to do it again. And if it was yes, we need to use it. So to do that, I need an if. What I'm going to do now is just drag the text that I gave it into there, okay, is equal to, and put yes. Now, the challenge with that is I could have done all lowercase yes, I could have done all uppercase yes, I could have done a capital Y, I could have accidentally caught a capital Y and an E. So there's all sorts of variations on that, and this will want it exact. All right, so what I do is if I do two uppercase, should I say, to uppercase. And notice at the top here, it's making suggestions. If I go back there and just press the dot, it gives me suggestions, and I can start to look through some of these and think, oh yeah, that's what I'd like to do. Okay, so I know that it's to upper. If I do to uppercase, what that's done, you can see on the preview, it's made that all uppercase. And then on here, I can just say, if it's equal to yes in capitals, then I'm not messing about with case sensitivity. All right, so I can see now that it's in the true branch. And if I'd put no, it would be in the false branch. What does that mean? Well, it means we've got yes and no. For now, all I'm going to do is drag this false and say, right, if it's not happy, just do it again from scratch. Okay? As I say, we could put some tweaks in there. Now, if it's true, then obviously we want to use that. And so what I could just dive straight into doing now is send it to a LinkedIn post. First of all, if it's true, then I was happy. Then I want to store that in my sheet so that it doesn't get used again. So if I do a append drawing sheet, okay, I'm going to select my spreadsheet again, which was that. The specific sheet is just sheet 1, and then I need to update each one of these manually. Now, if in this stuff, if you do 2 brackets, it means that you want to, you have to click expression, but if you do 2 brackets like that, it means that you want to use code, and it will make some suggestions for you. So if I click now, it knows then to enter the date. Post, I can very easily just go back to here, drag in post, and there's the post. And then the CTA type, same again, I've got my CTA type. I'll just use the label, in this case, label. And now that will, if I click execute on that, hopefully I will get a tick. All right, for some reason it's lost all the previous data. I don't know why, but we can just, oh, it's started again. So it's just asked me to respond. So I'm just going to put a quick yes in there. Sometimes it loses, for whatever reason, all the previous data, so it just has to run through just so it's got some information. So now we are in the sheets. If I flick back to my sheet, we can see that it's added that, okay? In this case, it was a comment, all right? And then it's put the date in there. So we can see that better if we just do that. Okay. So now we would want that to add it to LinkedIn. Okay, so if I set up LinkedIn, we want to create a post. It's all we can do in here. Create a post, person, and then we could literally just drag in. I won't do it from that. I'll do it from here. Drag in that post, and that would be as simple as that. Now, I'm not, for the benefit of this, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to, I'll disable it for now. Okay, so I'll just move that over there. You can do multiple strands. So what I'm going to do is just make this send me an email. So if I do Outlook, if I go into there and then send a message, send message. I can also send me, just for the benefit of showing you that this thing works, Shane at AVN.UK, my post, and then drag again, just that same thing in there. Let's pretend that that was the LinkedIn post happening. Now that's said true. If I go to my emails, oops, here we go, and pull that up, we can see that I've got a post here. And if I just pull that up here, we can see that that's the post. That would have gone straight onto LinkedIn. All right, now, so if we wanted to, we could run, by the way, if you click this button here, it tidies it up if it needs to be tidied up. We can run that anytime, of course, it's scheduled. So if I do that, you can see it working through. Yeah, we can see it having the conversation. We can see it get to Slack, and it's waiting there because it's sent me a new one now. If I respond and put, let's say I put no for the benefit of this one there. It's gone back again. We can see it's whizzing through. It's going to send me a new one now. Go back to Slack. It's created me a brand new one. Yes. Okay. Oops. Oh, I keep clicking the wrong one. And I was hoping just to catch it, but it's done as quick as that. And if I go back to my emails now, there should be a new one pop up. Here we go. And that's done. So then we would just make that active. Okay. And that will now go off at that specific time, at the times that we've said every single day, and run for us. Has that been useful? Give us a yes or no in the chat box. Brilliant. Okay. Now listen, I know that there's a lot there that I've covered in a short space of time. I am running a series of webinars on this topic where I break this down into really simple chunks so that you get a really good idea. Because I want you to be saving this amount of money a month, but getting the kinds of clients that you want making inquiries with you. So you're right, Simon, you know, there's a lot involved there. So what I want to do is invite you to attend this 4-session seminar I'm doing. I think it's every Tuesday in October. All right, so it's 4 sessions, 90 minutes each. I recommend that you click the link I'm just putting in there and go take a look and register for it. Now, it does come with a small price tag. It's £97. Compare that with the cost here. I think you'll find that that's worth it. So I hope you do. Obviously, in that session as well, I should be giving you access to not just the how-to detailed instructions for setting this up yourself, but actually I'll save and give you the file name so you can import it into your own N8N of all of these. Thanks for that, Jonathan. Appreciate that. So I'll step you through everything, how to do the prompt engineering, how to create your own AIs, how to create website bots that do FAQs and put people straight into your diaries, because there are bots that you can pay for every month, but they've done what I can teach you to do, and then it's going to cost you next to nothing. How to get it to analyze and review your accounts, all of these things, we'll do it over those 4 sessions. So my recommendation is that thank you for that, Jonathan and Pathway Accountants. Click that link because it's just about to disappear as I end this session. And get yourself booked on that because I'm really, really excited. As you'll see, I love this topic and I really want to get you embracing this. So it just saves you a lot of time and money and you get some great rewards from it. Right, I'm done. Click the link before it disappears. I will just switch my camera off and the audio just so that you've still got the link on there for a few more minutes. Otherwise, I wish you well. I'm away now for the weekend in Amsterdam, celebrating my sister's 50th. Yeah, hope you have a great weekend as well. Bye-bye.